Hi, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Omnist. Background down a little bit. Is chosen a little bit humorously for today's subject. We're going to be talking about something that is very much in the news lately, and which I've written on in my set of short essays on Amazon Kindle, but I haven't done a sermon on yet. So here's the Omnist sermon on abortion. Okay. Very fraught political issue. So we're going to get into all of the details of it, not just focus on moralistic religious aspects, although all of it essentially is religious. As you know, if you listen to my postings, preaching, everything ties back that we do ties back to reincarnation and karma, some way, shape, or form. Okay, so let's look at it from a karmic standpoint. That we need to at the soul situation, and let's start with the fetus, the forming fetus. Now, if you've listened to my program before, you know that it is my contention, okay, my truth I give you, that everything has a soul, from the smallest particle to the largest universe. Okay, and that soul is essentially the oversoul of that collective in the physical universe. And the reason those souls have those duties is that's part of the system of reincarnation and karma that lets souls teach themselves through experience what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, so that when they go back and reincarnate, plan another life in the heavens, that their next choice will be one that leads them closer to their chosen path, a path which is consistent with not only their desires, but also their abilities. Okay, so let's talk about how the soul comes to this collective known as a fetus. Okay, let's start before birth. Okay, before birth, you've essentially got two entities, a sperm and an egg. Actually, many sperms and one egg that happens to be the one that was just recently dropped by the mother. Now, the existence of that soul is not a human being. An unfertilized egg is not a human being. A sperm that has not fertilized an egg is not a human being. It's a potential one, but everybody knows the female has thousands of eggs in her that are made, and she has a supply of, and she uses one every month, just in case she decides to get pregnant, or nature chooses to make her pregnant some other way. Men have pretty much an infinite supply of sperm that's constantly regenerating. Okay, those souls have a very limited existence, a very limited purpose. There may be souls that grasp onto there as maybe a training wheel to get to the human species, just like a soul might choose to be a human heart or a human brain for a few incarnations, to see one side of the human experience without having to deal with the whole thing. Because the whole human being is not one soul, it is the leader of a collection of souls that make up a whole body. And you have to deal with some very demanding other souls within you. The head, the brain, the heart, the senses can deceive you. Your hands may deceive you. Your hands may not be able to resist touching something that you know you shouldn't touch. Your private parts may not be able to resist getting into something they know they shouldn't be getting into. Your stomach may tell you you need to eat things that it knows is bad for you, but gosh, it tastes so good. You actually feel so good going down. And this is where all emotions come from in not being able to manage the demands of our body. Souls of our body can be very demanding. And this is why so many women get pregnant. They don't want to be pregnant when they could be getting birth control very easily. Very many different methods of birth control, but somehow manage to get pregnant anyway and want a baby. Okay, so this is the where we're approaching it from. The fetus is not a human being. When does it become a human being, you ask? Well, some say it's at the moment of conception. That is a position one could take. The Omnist position is that it can only happen when the soul of the full human being comes to lead this collective. Now, generally, I don't believe that happens before about the 4th to 6th month, when the baby starts becoming active, starts showing evidence of consciousness, is evidence that the soul is there. And most mothers, I'm not a mother, but I've talked to many women who were pregnant, including 3 wives, and they will have this feeling somewhere around that time of, oh, I felt him for the first time. And all of a sudden, this thing inside their body has a soul. They just know it. Even if they don't feel it, there's like, he's speaking to me. He's saying something to me. He or she. Okay? There is an innate sense in the mother when that baby is human. That comes, like I said, between the 4th and 6th month, because how this works in heaven is the heavens, where souls are looking to find their next incarnation. There are some of them that cater to souls that want to be human, that are used to being human, maybe, or they want to move up the scale and try out being human. It's not an easy experience, but you learn a lot. Okay? And they don't just get to jump onto any fetus that they want. Their advisors propose. Well, so here's a family here that's about to have a child, hasn't got a soul yet. What do you think about incarnating as the child of that woman and that man, or just that woman? She's a single mother. She needs a soul for her baby. And from heaven, you'll feel the resonance of those folks calling to you. You'll feel how their karma fits with yours, what sort of karmic experiences you might have there. Now, you might have a really strong resonance because this other person who you're considering incarnating as the child of maybe has a long-standing past relationship with you. Maybe you were their heart in a previous incarnation. Maybe they were your baby in a previous incarnation. Who knows? Those decisions are made for all sorts of different reasons. And depending on what level you're at, which heaven you're experiencing, your participation and knowledge of what you're deciding can be more or less limited. At any rate, at some point, some soul decides, I'm going to come and experience this. Now, some will choose to experience a situation where, okay, I know that this woman is considering having abortion. I may be going into a fetus that's going to die. Or if it survives, it's going to be abandoned by a mother. And there are souls that do choose experiences like that. Don't ask me why. They've experienced maybe abandoning a child themselves, and as punishment feel like they owe it to the universe to go through that experience again, that angst, as sort of an atonement. Because that's essentially how we deal with karma. We don't necessarily ever get the chance to make it up to the people that we abused and taken advantage of, but we have to forgive ourselves. And we don't really forgive ourselves until we really forgive ourselves, which doesn't happen. You may be able to, when you're down here, rationalize forgiving yourself for something bad you did, but you're only creating an illusion of forgiveness. In heaven, you don't get illusions like that. It's going to be inherently obvious to you every mistake you've ever made. This is what the past life, the life review is all about, is getting up to speed with what your karma really is, what new karmic entanglements you've created in the current incarnation. Okay, so at some point, so my take on the thing ethically is that I would highly frown on abortions past the first trimester. Does that mean that that's an absolute no-no? Well, of course not. There are reasons why one might after that point. One might think one was in a stable relationship and was on the route to getting married, and the partner steps out, that no, I can't handle this, or turns out to be abusive or whatever. There are all sorts of reasons for a later term abortion. But one reason isn't that, well, I just forgot to get the abortion sooner, and I knew I could get it any time. And besides, Planned Parenthood pays more for fully developed fetuses, because they do. They love to have late-term abortions because they sell them for science. And that is sick. That is a very negative karma thing to do, to farm human tissue for experimental purposes, to use human tissue for experimental purposes. Now, I say human tissue, I mean human tissue that has a soul, which means, again, this late-term thing. If you're going to experiment on fetal tissue, it damn sure better be early term, or I have a problem with that. Once the soul is attracted, you don't know that soul's plan. You don't know if they were planning to be used for science. They didn't get to sign on the dotted line that their tissues could be used for science, like some of us do in the case of accident. We'll sign and say our organs should be donated for science or for medical purposes. That's just fine. That's authorized. That's legal. And that is non-karmic creating. Okay, because what I tell you about karmic sin is a little different than the sin of the Bible. Karmic sin is a sin against another soul, not against another body. It's much more complicated. Okay, and there is such a thing as a mercy killing, when a body has become unable to satisfy any of the soul's needs, and that soul decides, you know what, I want to move on and have another body. They should be allowed to commit an assisted suicide in as painless and humane a way as possible. So, I'm telling you the real scoop here. I don't fall in any particular ideological camp on this one. I think you're both, to some extent, full of shit. Okay, let's talk about the other people involved in this decision. Well, some people argue, well, because it's in my body as a woman, it's only my concern. And that is fucking bullshit, because that baby is not only you, it is partly, half, the father. The father should have as much say as you as to whether you abort or not. It needs to be a joint decision. And if the father or the father's family says, we will raise the child, don't worry about that, then a woman should not be able to get an abortion. That is a karmic sin. Now, a man should not be able to force a woman to get an abortion. I've had personal experience with that because my wife, right now, was almost forced to get an abortion by her ex. That's how I met up. She was 3 months pregnant and had been abandoned by her ex because she wouldn't get an abortion. In fact, when she had violently opposed what he was trying to do, he got her put in jail. Now that's some deep negative karma. Now let's talk about the institutional side of this. We talked a little bit about the dark karma of Planned Parenthood, basically baby farming. This is what they do. This is absolutely what that organization is all about. You look into their literature, you look at what they do, you look at the medical institutions they are allied with, they are about baby farming to the medical industry, which has all kinds of needs for testing on human tissue. Now, granted, those needs may be valid, but should be open and voluntary. I wonder how many women would get an abortion if they knew that their baby was going to be tortured for science. Let's look at governments now. Clergy. They should be there to advise, to support, to give guidance, spiritual guidance to the family if they choose. Absolutely a great role for whatever clergy you look up to. Somebody comes to me for advice on such a problem, I'll give them the viewpoint of an Omnist clergist. I will tell them, well, what does the woman want? How old is the fetus? What does the family want? How old is the woman? And then I will give you a nuanced response based upon all those factors and karma. And say, well, this is who's going to get the most karma if you do what. And you have to decide that. It's your choice. If you're not given a choice, if it's forced on you, then that is a very negative karmic thing for whoever forced it. So, the ones forcing people not to get an abortion are experiencing some very dark karma. If a woman wants to get an abortion, seriously doesn't want a child, what chance do you think that child has? And the family doesn't want it either. Okay, that's a possibility. And maybe the adoption agencies have too many children, don't have any demand for that kind of child. Okay, I can understand that. And let's give them the opportunity to abortion within reason in those first 3 months. After 3 months, then educate them on, okay, if you don't feel like you can take responsibility for this child, here's what is available in your community to fill the gap. But still make that person understand that they have a responsibility for that child to exist. I mean, unless they were forcibly raped, which does happen, and that's the way some babies are produced. Now, I can't understand how somebody who was raped would wait past the 3rd month to get an abortion. That smells pretty fishy to me. And there are women who lie about rape. Don't tell me that there aren't. There are women who use the rape card to manipulate men, to manipulate the system. There are men who do such things too. I'm not saying only women are manipulative and controlling. There are many souls who use the system to take advantage of it, who use their family members, who use their community, who use their government. This is negative karma too. This is really bad karma because it is karma you're inflicting on your whole community. It is karma you're inflicting on your whole country by being adamant on these issues, by forcing your opinions and your viewpoints on everybody just because you have control of Congress or the presidency or the Supreme Court or legislature for one session. That is very, very negative karma. That is forcibly forcing your way on other souls without even considering their point of view. Now, you can't make everybody happy in life. That's a given. There is no way to avoid all karma. That's why I poke such fun at many of the Eastern religions, because karma is there not to be avoided, it's to experience. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to get karma. They just should be aware of it. And if you force karmic things on people that they're not aware of, you're creating karma that doesn't need to be there. And this is the kind of action that is going to get you banished from whatever universe you are and replaced with a virtual soul. And I'm not going to go into and explain again what a virtual soul is all about and what the multiverse is all about. Let me just tell you that once you get off to one of these negative universes, the bored universes, I call them, the authoritarian universes where might makes right, it's hard to get back. They don't let go of their slaves very easily in those universes. So be careful making these karmic decisions. You don't always, well, I mean, you get another chance, but the chances get harder the further you slide down the dark side. And there are definite, very dark sides you can slide in a situation involving infants, abortion. Think of that before you pontificate, before you attack people who don't agree with you. Think about the issue three-dimensionally instead of one-dimensionally like you do. Now, the worst karma is coming from these people who will defend either pro or anti-abortion, don't even give a shit about babies, but are just using it because they know it's a great wedge issue to divide people, to get people to polarize around shitty candidates from either party. And that is the darkest karma of all. Politicizing something like the taking of a human life. How much more evil can you get? This is pure evil, to make the life of somebody political. This is no different than the Nazis exterminating Jews. This is no different than the Chinese Communist Party exterminating Uyghurs, or forcing Uyghur women to marry Han men, or forcing them to get abortions, which does happen in communist China. Do you want that same sort of shit happening here? Well, that's where you're going if you let this woke crowd take over our government. Because they are the useful idiots, people that want to turn this into a communist globalist dystopia, just like China is. If you think communism is populist, it's going to make everybody happy and give us all equality, you are the stupidest turd on the planet. It's never happened and it never will. As soon as one party gets a hold of the reins of power in a country, they become a dictatorship, an oligarchy, whose self-preservation becomes the only thing that matters. Exactly like Nazi Germany, exactly like Stalinist Russia, exactly like Mao's China, exactly like Xi Jinping China, and exactly like what the Biden administration is trying to turn the U.S. into, and the Bush administrations were doing before that, and the Clinton administration and the Obama administration. There has not been a real American in the White House since maybe Jimmy Carter. And even Jimmy Carter was just a dumb peanut farmer who didn't know he was being manipulated and controlled, frankly. The last really American president I know of was Theodore Roosevelt, over 100 years ago, who after his first term in office saw how shitty the place was in Washington, that he decided, you know what? I'm going to go for a second term, and I'm going to do it right now. But I'm not going to do it within these parties. He tried to get nominated by the Republicans. Oh, they wouldn't have any of that. So he ran as an independent. He started the American Progressive Party. Yes, Theodore Roosevelt was the original American progressive. And he nearly won. You know why he didn't win? That was the first time that the Democrats and the Republicans banded together to defeat the people. He had an enormous public support after his first term. Didn't do everything perfect, but everybody knew his heart was in the right place, and he tried to make things right for the American people. And they crucified him for it. Now, I don't pretend Trump is another Theodore Roosevelt. I know he isn't. In fact, my suspicions are that he was deliberately played up by the Clinton campaign, and they were just surprised that he actually won and actually started walking the talk that he was giving and getting real support from people saying, well, maybe this guy's the real deal. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he had a change of heart, or maybe they're still playing the controlled opposition game. The jury's out on that, and I'm not telling you what to think. I don't even know what I think some days. All I know is the uniparty establishment has got to go because they hate our country. They absolutely hate our country. And the moment somebody gets into that cabal, that cult, they start hating our country too. Oh, they're given all these opportunities for big investments in China and getting in on the ground floor of these new deals that Hunter Bidens are working on. And they get turned to the dark side so quickly. Look at AOC, perfect example of somebody who may once have been somehow motivated by good for the American people, who is a total and complete sellout now. And it happens more often than it doesn't. There are only a handful of people in Congress I can think of who aren't total and complete sellouts. And most of them never last more than one term because they're attacked mercilessly in the primaries, which is happening right now as we have primaries in season in the U.S. This is very evil. And this political issue is a small part of a much bigger issue that is destroying your country, America. My country too, my country of birth. But frankly, I've seen things are so bad that I decided to retire elsewhere. I'm freely admitting that I came to Asia and I'm here in Indonesia because I think it's going to be a safer place with what's coming, unless my countrymen pull their heads out of their goddamn asses and stop fighting over things like abortion and start fighting corruption, especially organized corruption by mafia families, which is exactly what's going on. The Chinese Communist Party is a bunch of mafia families that run China. The same thing is true of the West. When you get right down to it, there's a cabal of mafia families that have the attention and the political power and the financial clout to manipulate everything you see and hear online, and who could make Rob Trump disappear from the internet in an instant if they wanted to. And they may at some point if anybody ever starts listening to me. But hopefully I'm getting through to a few people that might not otherwise think about things this way and who start talking amongst themselves. That's my goal. So I hope this gets watched by people on all sides of the abortion spectrum, and you come to think of it a little bit more honestly, from many perspectives, not just political echo chamber perspective, because it is a complex moral issue. It's a complex religious issue. And you're not going to ram your version of a solution down anybody's throat and think it's going to stand. We've got to work together to make sensible compromises. And everything I've told you about the Omnist point of view is very, very sensible. Leave it to the woman, leave it to the families. Let people know that first trimester is probably not a karmic problem, probably not a big sin, but late-term abortions are. And tell Planned Parenthood and the medical industry, if you want to continue to receive tax dollars, if you want to continue to have your research funded, you better not do it in communist China behind the Great Firewall, like Fauci and his buddies did to create the virus. so that they could come up with their vaccines that are even worse than the virus. You guys pulling these shenanigans, guys and ladies, you may think that you're doing a great thing for yourselves. You may be willing to look the other way because there's nothing an individual can do about this. I'm just part of a small cog in the system. I can't step up and bullshit. If you don't do something about what's going on now, if you don't speak up, if you don't expose the corruption, expose the lies, you are part of it. And you have that karma on your soul. And that is really, really dark karma. I am telling you that you are not likely to ever see humanity again. At least not in God's universe. You might see humanity in another universe where Earth is a very different place. And it's going to be a very dark place. And you're going to deserve it. Now, I ended on kind of a negative note there, but I really, really want to get through to some people because you don't have long left to change the road you're on. And this needs to go to people on all sides of the political spectrum. If you're one of those people that thinks if our side just dominated both houses, had the presidency, and had everything sewed up, then everything would be perfect. You are in a mindset that is committed to crime, to karmic sin. If you think the end justifies the means for your political agenda, you are a grave karmic sinner, and you're going to end up in a Borg universe or on a Borg planet somewhere else in this galaxy that we're going to have to go find and convert to karma by sending the souls that won't play nice to Borgland and teaching the survivors how to behave responsibly, like responsible creators, accepting responsibility for their actions and choices. Which is what karma is all about, which is what God's universe is all about. So, till we get to Star Trek phase of humanity, this is Rob Trump telling you about it coming, and hoping you'll tune in again for the Omnist Hour. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.